Hello, everybody. This is Zach Said It Again. I'm your host, Zach Cooley, and it is indeed an honor for me to have on the phone today Grammy winning, legendary international singing artist and actress Sheena Easton. She will be performing on Saturday, March 21st at our beautiful Millwald Theatre in Wytheville, Virginia. Sheena Easton, thank you for taking time out of your day to talk to me today.
Well, thanks, Zach. I appreciate you having me.
Well, as I said, it is indeed an honor. And as I told you, I grew up listening to uh, Morning Train and the wonderful James Bond song that you did, For Your Eyes Only. Um, let's just go ahead and jump into that. How did the opportunity for those songs happen for you?
Well, Morning Train was my first big international hit, and that happened
Mm-hmm.
very early in my career. And the opportunity for the song, pretty much, I had my producer at the time gave me back then it was cassette tapes, demos,
Mm-hmm.
and I listened to a bunch of demos, and this was one of the ones that he highly recommended. He had highlighted this as being his favorite. I loved it. We went into the studio, recorded it, and it became a huge hit all over the world. And that, I think, is what opened the door to being asked to perform For Your Eyes Only, to perform the theme for that movie. I believe that because Morning Train had garnered so much attention, it brought me to the attention of the producers, and I got the chance to do a Bond song, which for me was a dream because I grew up listening, of course, to all the greats. Shirley Bassey, of
Mm-hmm.
course, was my favorite Bond diva, and so getting the chance to perform a Bond song myself was a dream come true.
And if my research is correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you are the only Bond diva, as you say, to be featured whose face at singing the song was actually featured at the on the end credits of a movie.
Yes, I was so far. I was the only one that was ever featured like that. That was the idea of Maurice Binder, who was the designer of those incredible Bond opening titles that were, well known. They were part and parcel of going to see a Bond movie. You knew that opening sequence was going to be exciting. And when I met with the producers at their offices at the studio, they Maurice came in to say hi, and I guess the next day we got the call saying he wanted to use me in his opening sequence, and I went down to, I think it was Pinewood, the old lot at Pinewood, and we filmed it down there, and he integrated it into his animation and all the rest of it.
And you're actually a very distinguished actress as well. I have a friend of
I wouldn't
mine.
call myself distinguished, but okay.
Well,
I have done a bit of acting, but I think distinguished is a bit, no, I wouldn't say that, but thank you.
well, you were on Miami Vice, as
Uh-huh.
was my personal hero Phil Collins. He was on Miami Vice.
Yep.
Was that a fun experience?
Oh yeah, I mean I've loved all the acting that I've done. I
Mm-hmm.
especially have loved doing the Broadway and the West End production that I did. That stage work I think is probably closer to my heart. But yeah, Miami Vice was the first TV show that I ever did, and of course when I came into it, it was already a huge hit, and the characters were very much part of the zeitgeist, so to speak. So I was stepping into something already well established. And it was awesome. It was running like a well run machine, and they just took great care of me, and it was a great first experience, and it helped me kind of find a pathway through other work.
Well, I have someone who is coming to your show next Saturday, and he is an ardent fan, and he asked me if I would ask you these questions. So he said, please will you ask her about her Standards album from the early 90s, No Strings. I still have the cassette somewhere. So I understand that it is one of your favorite things to do to sing the great standards.
Oh yeah, I mean, I grew up listening to all kinds of music, and the Great American Songbook and all the great standards. That was very much part of my musical education. So having the chance to record some of them, they were basically pop and jazz standards. That was an awesome experience. I recorded that in the old studios where a lot of stuff like that was done in the past, the Capitol Records building.
Right.
And we did it old school, none of that. There was no, back when I was recording, and especially when we did that, we made a very strong choice to try and do it as organic as possible. So we did a few takes and we picked the one that we liked best and stuck with it. It wasn't one of those where we pieced it together line by line and cut in and picked like perfect moments and jigsawed it together. Of course, there's no auto-tune back then, so it was very much done like the artist would have recording the songs when I first heard them. So it was a great experience. I got to work with really amazing musicians, and it's one of my favorite projects. So tell your friend thank you very much.
Absolutely. His name is Philip. And he also says, I just rewatched her in John Carpenter's Body Bags recently, as well as her episode from the 90s revival, The Outer Limits.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I pop up here and there in guest shots in a bunch of different TV shows. Well, but that's kind of cool.
Well, and this is my question that I wanted to ask, because I saw a clip of you from, and you still have this beautiful Scottish accent, by the way. But I saw a clip from you from 1978, 1979, somewhere around in there. And you are singing, I Got the Music in Me, and you were singing it in front of one of my absolute heroes, and that is Miss Dusty Springfield.
Oh, okay. I grew up in the era where we kind of sang the music that we heard, and everything I heard had an American sound to it. So that's where the American sound in most artists like myself in that era sounded. But yeah, my accent was very strong Scottish then, because I hadn't left the country yet.
Right.
And I was very young. I am 67 now, and I've lived here in the United States since I was 21 years old, and I'm not surrounded by any Scottish voices, so it softens the accent. And my accent now is like a mixture of all sorts. A lot of people say, oh, are you Australian? Some people guess Irish, but I am, of course, as you said, Scottish. But back then my accent hadn't eroded as much as it has now.
Well, my question is, what was it like to sing in front of Dusty Springfield? What was she like? As a Southern American, I still talk about Dusty Springfield, and people around here go, who? And they don't understand how important she was. So in getting to talk to people, I don't hear from a lot of people who actually knew Dusty. So what
well
was...
I did not know her, and I met her very briefly. The moment that you're speaking of it was part of the documentary that launched me to the public eye, and this was a series of documentaries that the BBC was doing called The Big Time. I believe it was 6 of them, and it was different. Like one was someone who was an amateur chef, and they got the opportunity to cook for a huge event, and I think someone got to drive a Formula One car, if I remember. I didn't see it all, but I, of course, was the singer, and the concept was we'll take a young amateur singer and we will record a single and we'll show what it's like to make a single record. And then what happened was when I went to the record company, when they took me to EMI Records to audition for that, EMI decided, no, we don't want that. We want to sign you as an artist and do a whole, multi-album contract. So, but in that moment, part of the documentary, they took me to various people who gave me advice and gave me their opinions. Some people said, oh, this girl's great, she'll go far. And some said, nah, she'll never make it. But Dusty Springfield was a lovely woman. As you know, she's a major influence on singers of my generation. Most of us grew up, and Dusty was definitely one of the artists that we listened to because she was blue-eyed soul,
Yeah,
and she was
absolutely.
jazz. She was everything. She could sing it all, and she sang totally from the heart. And that was a great lesson to learn when you're a young singer coming up. You listen to that and you learn all about interpretation and how to make a song personal and make it something that you connect to personally.
Well, I've written a play about the Memphis sessions because I just absolutely love her so much and love that album so much because, as you said, she's sort of the pioneer for blue-eyed soul. So,
oh yeah, she was one of a kind. She was extremely, ahead of her time, I think, and she was unique.
And a very nice person, I gather from what I.
She was lovely, and she couldn't have been more supportive and more kind.
Well, that is great to know. Now, you heard again, if my research is correct, when you heard Barbra Streisand, you had not intended to be a singer growing up.
No. See this? I hear this coming back at me. No, my intention was to be a singer ever since I could sing. Like I was a tiny little thing. But I think what gets misconstrued there is probably in an interview I did early on, and then it goes on to be, legend, right. Whatever. Right. When I was probably like 15 or 16, whatever age I was when the movie The Way We Were came out. When I sat in the movie theater and I heard her sing, the end crawl, I was like, I literally got shivers. And it was at that moment, where I was on the cusp of becoming a young adult. I realized I have to do this as a career. It can't just be something that I do as a hobby. I have to do it. I have to go out there. I have to give it my best and try and make music, because if I can make one person experience what I've just felt listening to her voice, then that's spreading magic in the world,
Right.
And that's what kind of gave me the courage to say, okay, even though I'm from a very small town in Scotland and the odds are very much against me, I've got to give it a shot. I've got to go for it. And that kind of gave me the impetus to really focus on putting that at the forefront of my mind when it came to choosing what I was going to do as far as, jobs. And instead of, going to work wherever, I was like, nope, I'm going to try and make it as a singer.
Did The Way We Were have anything, did that influence you wanting to be an actress at all, or is that just an opportunity that came later?
When I decided that I wanted to become a performer, I auditioned to get in. You had to audition. And I went to the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, which was the Scottish sister to RADA in London. Now it's got a different name. Now it's called the Conservatoire. But it's the Scottish academy for young people that are kind of like Juilliard, that sort of vibe. So, of course, being there, I started there. I went there when I was 17 going on 18. And, that teaches you so much about the theater. We learned so many different aspects of the theater. So I kind of, from a very early age had the acting, singing thing going hand in hand.
Right.
Singing was very much my strength, and it was my first love. But I did have the theatrical bug then, and of course, that helped me whenever I went on to do Broadway in the West End.
Mm-hmm. Um, you have the distinction of being the only artist, and again, correct me if I have this wrong, but I believe you are the only artist to top the all five of the major Billboard charts.
Well, it's because I had country and dance and pop and R&B and all those different charts. To be honest,
Right.
I'm sure somebody else has done that by now. I mean, people have had crossover is a big thing now. People can have a dance hit one week and a country hit the next. But when I did it, it was a big thing because there was much less crossover activity. Radio stations tended to play their genre of music, and if you were an artist known to be from a different genre, they didn't look at your music quite as welcoming. So that was the 80s and the very early 90s. It's very different now, and as we know, with all the different platforms for music and all the different music streaming outlets there are, I'm sure that there's other artists that have done that. But back in the day, it was something.
Right. As best as I can research it, you are still the record holder,
Well,
which is quite. I mean, it must be. I mean, I can't imagine to want to be in that field and dream of being in that field and then making it in that field and then to hold that distinction. That must just be, or to hold any kind of record making distinction, as well as to own one of the very coveted Grammy Awards. That must be a real gift for you.
oh yeah, I mean, I don't take it for granted. I think that, the fact that any of us that choose to go into the field of the arts, whether it be music or visual arts or dance or whatever part of the performing arts, we're just lucky when we get another job. That's
Right.
my friends and I get together and we go, "Hey, got a gig next week?" "Yeah, they're still employing you, huh?" And we laugh about it because deep down it's true. You kind of go, "Whoa, I've got another gig. That's awesome." And it could be 40, 50 years later, but you still don't take it for granted. So yeah, it's very flattering when stuff like that happens. But I also point out, the fact that I would not have had that record, if I still have it, if it hadn't been for, the country duet that I did with Kenny Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
We got tonight because, let's face it, Kenny was the reason why they played that on country radio,
Right.
not me. I wouldn't have gotten just one of my songs played on country radio and had such a big country hit. So you got to give. I like to bring people's mind to that fact that I've worked with so many awesome people, producers and writers and other artists, and all of that goes to make a career. You don't do it by yourself. And of course, the fans that go out there and support you and buy the music or come to the shows, they're the ones that keep your career going. That's why I'm still out there performing all the time, even though I don't record anymore, is because I still have fans that are loyal and that want to come and see the live shows. So I never take any of that stuff for granted. Nobody does anything by themselves.
And coming up in that time, my favorite artists are artists of the '80s or those that are no longer with us. Dusty, Tina Turner, Kenny Rogers, as you mentioned. It must have been a wonderful time to be in the business.
I think so. I mean, I loved the music of the 70s. That
Mm-hmm.
was the music that molded me as an artist. I started recording at the very end of the 70s and releasing songs in the 80s. But what I think most of us as artists, we're influenced by the music that we hear when we're, you know, around 10 years old, right up through our teen years. That's when we really soak music in. But honestly, the amount of talent that's out there today, there's so much incredible talent out there, and there's so many more opportunities for the young artists to find their audience. There's people have their own YouTube channels, and they have all the different social media platforms that they can get discovered on. And there's my kids, my son and my daughter, who are now and just become 30, they'll introduce me to new people. They'll say, Mom, you got to hear this, or they'll play me a video. You got to see this guy or see this girl. And it keeps me, hearing new music. So I think every generation and every time frame has awesome talent out there. But I think all of us, it's human nature for anybody to think that the music that they heard coming up, that was the best ever. If you'd have talked to my mom and dad, they would have said the music of the 1940s, nothing was going to beat that,
Right.
So it's definitely something. That's the great thing about music. It brings us back to a time in our lives. It brings us back to experiences. And that's why I'm so privileged when I get to perform live, that I'll be performing songs and the people in my audience, they'll go, oh, when a song starts, I'll see their face light up because I know that's their song. That's the one they came to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to, walk down memory lane with them, and you get to walk through people's lives by sharing the music.
Absolutely. So you have played everywhere. You have performed with some of the greatest artists in history. You have performed at some of the biggest venues in history. So how do we get fortunate enough to have you come to our little hometown hamlet in Southwest Virginia?
I have been, this last couple of years especially, we're traveling. We've expanded the area that we go to, the band and I. We used to just go to certain major venues,
Right.
And that just becomes kind of repetitious, and you also don't get to meet fans that you wouldn't get to see otherwise. So we're now doing things where we're going into areas and we're performing at some of these fabulous old historic theaters and clubs.
Right.
And I've gotten to see some great music venues that I never performed at before, and places where when you walk in there and you look at all the posters of all the artists that have been there before, you're like, oh my goodness, people signing the walls and stuff. It's awesome. So we're having a blast. We are loving getting out there and being in some old venues, and also, as I said, getting the chance to meet fans, and they say, oh, you've never been to this area before, and I've never gotten to see you live. So I'm loving this. This is the best. And a lot of the venues and the theaters are small and intimate, and it harkens back to performing in the little, jazz clubs and stuff, like the greats that we talked about got the chance to do. So it's awesome. It's very intimate and very close up. The show is very musical. There's no dancers and there's no flashy stuff. It's just music, and I have the best musicians. I have some of the top Vegas musicians that perform with all the visiting artists that come in, and all the artists in residence here, and they come out and they work with me every time I take to the road. So I have great musical talent that the audience just loves, and it's great. I have a blast, and the audience usually does too. So hopefully the same will be whenever I come to your time.
Have you ever, to your knowledge, spent any time in the Southwest Virginia area?
I'm sure I have. I have traveled to so many places over 40 odd, almost 50 years. And when people say, hey, have you been to, and they give me an exact place, I've learned not to say yes or no, because
Right.
if I say absolutely, I find out that I haven't, or if I say I don't think so, I get there and there's pictures of me in that exact place from
Right.
20 years before. So there's a strong possibility that I've been in the area, even if I haven't been in the venue.
Right. Well, being, all of us from this area are all, of Scotch, Irish, English descent. So I think when you get here and you see these beautiful Appalachian mountains, hopefully you will feel at home because
Oh, I'm sure I will. I feel at home talking to you, so it'll be
well,
lovely to get there.
that's very kind.
I heard music from all over and artists that I never thought I'd get the chance to meet. I can remember when I first went to Los Angeles, and this was before you were born, sir. So this would have been like 1982 or 81 actually. And I remember getting there, and I was coming, to perform on TV with my first hits, and I was literally in a car driving through Laurel Canyon. And, I had tears in my eyes because all I could hear was Joni Mitchell in my head singing Ladies of the Canyon. And, when I was first listening to that when I was in high school, I never thought that I would actually be there in the place that she was singing about. Music opening your eyes to different experiences and different places and different people, and how that to me is one of the reasons why it is so magical and so unifying. It's one of the things, and it sounds kind of hokey, but it's one of the things that truly brings people together when other things can't, and that's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. So, of all your achievements, and there are many, is there anything that you are proudest of?
I'm proudest of my kids. Again, that sounds like a cliche, but that to me is the best thing that ever happened in my life. And being a mom was the most important thing.
I know that's true for me as a father too. So, absolutely.
I guess if you're talking career, just the fact that I'm still doing it, the fact that I've survived and I'm still performing and I'm still, music is still the thing that supported me since I was 17 years old onwards. It's what's always paid my bills, and it's been my career. And when I made that choice to take the risk and bet everything on music, it's never let me down. So I'm proud of the fact that, as we say in our business, still got a gig.
Absolutely. And what would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned in your life?
Biggest lesson is to keep your mind and your heart open. And when something, in any field, whether it be your personal life or your professional life, your creative life, just, keep your mind open and don't stay shut to other people's ideas. Don't stay closed off to concepts and different attitudes, because closed-mindedness, that doesn't serve anybody. So just stay open.
Thank you very much for the time. It's been nice talking with you.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.